What's going on, everybody, and welcome everybody once again to the Facts Project. Today, I have two very special guests, Heru and TJ Sterling. Welcome back to the program. Thank you once again. We are here to talk about Musa, Lion of Mali. Thank you once again.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely, man. Look,
Be
I felt
back.
like I felt like it was imperative that we had this conversation because it is before the holidays, and this will get released before the holidays. But I feel as though that this particular storyline is important. I feel as though the emphasis on it has to be spoken about. So I have to initially ask, and I'll start with you, Ade. Um, for listeners new to the project, what is Musa, Lion of Mali?
Musa-Lion of Mali. Well, first of all, hello everyone. My name is Heru. I hope you're having a great one. No, Musa, Lion of Mali is a 120 page sword and sorcery Afro historical fantasy epic. So we TJ and I sat down and we looked at the life of the one and only Mansa Musa, Musa Keita, and we thought about all the magnificent, wonderful things that were recorded in history and came to realize that there were a lot of things that just weren't. And so we understood that gave us a little bit of wiggle room for telling a story about an epic man in an epic way. So we started penning a saga. It's a graphic novel, again, 120 pages. It's fully done and dusted, and we're ready to bring it to everyone. But it is our love letter to the diaspora. It is a celebration of a magnificent life, and it's honestly just the opening. Like we really want to dig deep into that world. So this is our first book on that.
Excellent. Now, this one is pretty much for both of you, so I'm not sure who this is going to pop up with first. But what sparked the idea to tell the story of a young Mansa Musa through the medium of comics?
Yeah, most of the time when people think about Mansa Musa, that's like basically towards the end of his journey,
Correct.
and it's literally like, okay, that's the destination, that's the flash, the bling, the shiny gold object in the room, as they like to say. But yeah, I mean, his trip to Mecca, you know, him expanding his territory, a lot of that happened when he came to power as an adult. So what we wanted to do was kind of tell that a little bit of an origin story and give that kind of the what little we wanted to give some YN energy into the mix and really just kind of bring in this kind of more young, brash, arrogant, cocky character that would eventually become king. So I mean, I think everybody loves a zero to hero story, but he's not really a zero. He's already pretty high up, and he's just going to continue to rise. And we're going to watch that rise throughout this series, one volume at a time.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
and as an established young warrior that you're basically describing throughout this particular story that you're having, because not there isn't many stories of a young Mansa Musa out there. What was there a moment when you realized this story has to be a comic?
Well, I think it was at the Genesis, the project was always going to be one. TJ had the bright idea of really like digging deep into it, and he reached out to me. He and I had met a few years ago, quite a few years ago at Baltimore Comic Con. We had a real rapport, and he knew I was heavy into history, Afrocentric dialogue in history, as well as, just being, proud diasporan and all that. And he was like, if I do the book, I want to do it with you.
Mm.
And so he came to me and it was always pitched as a comic, but we understood that it could always be a lot more. So when we sat down originally,
Right.
we talked about what it could be, and the idea was like we'd bring it to the world as a comic, but we didn't want to stop there. So we built it and designed it and world built as though it were this living, breathing organism of a story. And comics is just the first medium we're bringing it to. We have a 100-page script. It's like 20 pages of back matter in that 120. But that first 100 pages is the first of what will be 500 pages. So we decided we are going to do 5 books at 100 page each, and we are going to go through this evolution of Musa. So we start with, YN Musa, and we would get through him getting the crown, him going to Mecca, him, expanding the territory, him winning and losing, him embracing this power that we've given him, which is a very critical part of the story as well. We decided to go the sword and sorcery routes. We wanted to add some mysticism, a few things that we can't verify weren't around in real life, but we know we want to spice it up a bit. But
Right.
we built it. We did, character art and concept art and world building as though this could be anything. So that if the ancestors smiled on us and said, "Hey, this is going to be a movie someday." We
Yeah.
already had that work done. This is gonna be an animated series. Work is already done. But it was always gonna be a comic, but it was a comic that was gonna feel as epic as any Hollywood production, and that's what we were swinging for.
Now, I like how you basically brought up power because I was going to bring up the subject of themes.
Mm,
Now, outside of the theme of power, legacy,
mm.
leadership, culture, which one did you feel like you wanted to highlight the most throughout the book? Or is it basically an evolution?
Uh,
Yeah, the theme really, I think for us, what kind of hit us like, like a ton of bricks was that when we were writing this story, that there was an opportunity to kind of describe a very lush, incredible, beautiful world that was like living and breathing. And when you get a chance to take a look at the book, you can see that we have a lot of incredible scenes of Mali and of the kingdom as well, and even outside of the kingdom and what those worlds look like. So we took this idea of world building and growing, a very positive, lush view of the diaspora as a whole throughout El Cabulon, which is what Africa was called before the colonizers came.
Hmm.
And we really wanted to show something that had never been seen before. And, it wasn't necessarily like, hey, like this is a bid for power. This is, a power grab. This isn't the Viltrumite Empire seeking out the universe, trying to suck up all kinds of territories. It was never
Right.
that type of a thing. It was more of like, again, a love letter to the diaspora to tell a story that had never been told before about a real human being. So we wanted to kind of keep some guardrails on there. So it didn't, have a situation where he was in a mech at some point and he was, an Afrocentric robot fighting. As cool as that would be, it didn't happen in the 14th century. So we kind of
Correct.
wanted to push the limits just a little bit to kind of get into a little bit of that sword and sorcery and that mysticism, but it all makes sense and it all feels realistic, even though is the fantastic.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
now you bring up the fact of basically almost like the tone of the book, the historical fantasy, the sword and sorceries portion of it. Was that on purpose, that gritty type of epic to where you wanted a historical fantasy, to where you wanted to provide elements to where maybe they were spoken about almost like as a tall tale and legend, to where it might have been in an exaggerated form, but yet you're bringing it out on a page.
Yeah, yeah, that was something we wanted early. So we looked at how much is known, quote unquote, known about Mansa Musa, because a lot of it's just made up. I mean, history is,
Yeah.
you know what it is. So we know some things are considered fact. We know we can go to the source in some places, others we can't. But we knew early on we wanted to have a bit of spice. We wanted to have, a little something extra. Like it's already dope enough that it's about Mansa Musa. But we
Mhm.
were thinking, well, we have room to really build something here, something that everyone can get into. And there are some folks who will look at this story and it's just they'll love it for what it is because it's set in Africa, in West Africa. There are people who love it because it's people who look like them, or it'd be people who look like people they love. Or it's just the idea if it's just people picking up a sword. Like eventually it started to feel a lot more Conan-ish to me. Conan the Conqueror, the Barbarian, the whatever. And I was happy with that because for me, as someone who loves fantasy, that is almost the pinnacle of it, right? Because fantasy to me is like there's high fantasy and there's real fantasy. And real fantasy is it's the world I live in and things I don't understand, things I can fantasize about. It's not a X-wing and robo suits. It is really like, that could have happened. Like my great 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 whoever might have seen some stuff like that. And so we left a lot of room in there. And we also put a lot of connective tissue and roots in what is actually there. There are towns in the book that then exist now. We mentioned the river, where there are some things where we do take some liberties, but the idea was always going to be that it would feel like, reality with the serial numbers rubbed off.
Mm. Now, I look at the both of you, basically how you've been able to put this together as curators, to a greater story. How did you approach making a historical figure feel relatable to a modern audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think the youth is a big piece of it,
Yeah.
seeing him as, again, a brash young man who's kind of still in the coming of age piece of his life. And then also seeing his brother, which is also on the flip side
Mm.
in the same space, but just in a different lane. You kind of automatically feel like, hey, that's kind of what I felt like when I was, young and thought I could do anything and everything. And you even have the king, which is their uncle, King Abubakari, and he's again he's sitting back, he's chilling, he's already essentially accomplished everything he needs to, and you kind of get even that OG status with him. So like I think we kind of give a slice of life for everybody. Even the character White Aminata is very very relatable, even though she's the antagonist within this particular story with a twist. So For me, when we were sitting down and talking about this, it was like, okay, what would this character think like? What would he talk like? How would the witty repartee work between him and his brother, who are so different? How would, the uncle, govern two young, strong black men that are literally ready, getting ready to take over his job? You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
there's lots of like interesting little pieces that I felt like we were touching on a lot of like Game of Thrones type of energy.
Hmm.
Like think
Yeah.
about the House of the Dragon, or even just the Snows, and how like again the rise to power of like these types of characters and how they're thinking about the throne and thinking about what they would do differently. And I think that's just a very relatable story for so many different reasons.
Hmm.
Excellent. Now, how much of that, if you could give it a percentage, how much is drawn from history versus fictionalized for storytelling?
I'd have to say, I'd say what 75 to 80% of it is really rooted in the people, places, things, and ideas of the time. But we threw in things like White Aminata's cybernetic arm, or I guess it wouldn't be cybernetic, her prosthetic arm, her having a firearm, the magical ability that we've given the Keita clan, the Keita family. Those are things where we just thought, wow, this is really dope, but let's see what else we can get away with.
Mhm.
So a lot of it, like Stanley Obende, the artist for chapter one, is in West Africa. He can look out the window. So a lot of the vistas we saw in that first chapter, that was home turf for him. So we were able to actually root it very much in reality, and then just say, you know what, this is ooh, okay. Well, let's just turn it up a notch. And so we only had to turn the dial up to 11, maybe 5 or 6 times across the whole story where we weren't delving directly with the supernatural.
Got you, got you. Now, I heard you talk about world building. Could you emphasize on that? What elements of, if you want to say, pray tell, a predated Mali were most exciting to bring to life visually?
Yo, we had a good time with this, man. This is one of
Mhm.
my favorite pieces of the book. Like, well, first, my favorite thing was working with a day on this because, again, like, James, you and I already know I've been writing these books and making them for quite some time, and to be able to work with a different writer who has a different style was a breath of fresh air. So, being able to
For sure.
um, get past that and then work on to the artwork creation stage post this exciting script being done, I'm like, oh, this shit is dope. And then at the time, I had been doing quite a bit of lecture series at different classrooms, virtually at colleges.
Yeah.
So I did, one in Jersey, then I did one in, at this school in Detroit. And, I knew the teacher and the students were really taken back by some of the stuff I was presenting. And they were like, hey, do you take interns? I was like, as a matter of fact, I do. And we've got this really dope book that we're working on that we need help with. So, I put two really talented students from the Detroit Creative Studies, college to work. And, we had G. Marin Markle, who's a young lady who did most, if not all, of the costume designs for the people and the warriors, and as well as the citizens and other different random folks within Mali. So you have pages and pages and pages of these very, very unique creative costume designs, different body types, different types of looking people.
Yeah.
And then you had Lauren Miller, who was our resident, environmentalist, who literally designed environments and 3D models based on, temples and, mosques and all these things that existed and still exist to this day in Mali. And essentially took that and then just injected it with like the fantastical. So like the capital of Mali, the palace looks like the palace that still exists in
Right.
Mali today, but it's a lot bigger, it's a lot more grand. So we approached it very much like building a world for a movie or a video game or an animation that could literally um stand the test of time. Like, hey, what do you need? We have every piece of this story covered, from the art to the environments to the sets to the where people live to how they eat and how they look and how they walk and talk. So that was something different that I had not done with other books before. Now, trust me, I've done character designs for books before, and maybe some
Yes.
ship designs and things like that. So we still did the homework, but this one we really, really, really brought out a big pot and put every single ingredient in to really make that gumbo taste as rich and saucy as it could.
Okay. Now, when we're talking about, because comics, of course, very visual art form, what was can I say the visual interpretation of how you wanted to portray Mansa Musa? Basically, what I'm looking at on the page,
Mm,
how did you want to portray that? Of course, it's a younger version, so we've never seen that before. Like as far as like what features you wanted to display. You talked about the costume design,
mm.
about the landscapes. Like, how did you want to go about that?
I think it was really about potential, right? Like, so there've been all these depictions of an older Musa with the beard and the turban, and he's wearing
Yep.
the silk robes and all that. What does that guy look like 20 years earlier? Like if he still has the same broad shoulders, if he still has the same height, the same strong jaw, what does that look like 20 years, 25 years earlier? You start to strip away the muscle, you start to strip away the scars and the wear and tear and the life, and you
Yeah.
get left with this young, virile, wiry, muscly dude. And our version of Musa is a warrior. He's not just like a weekend warrior. Like he's the tip of the spear for the king. When the king says there's dirt to do, he's the one with the dustpan. And he goes out there, even though he is, a noble and he's in line for the throne and all that good stuff. He's a leader who leads from the front. So we wanted him to look physical. We wanted him to look like he would be on an and one mixtape from the
Yeah.
odds. We wanted him to look like he's ready to go, go get drafted somewhere. We wanted him to look like someone who has a presence, but we didn't want him to be that yet. Like it's
Mhm.
like if you were trying to look like Steve Rogers between being the 90-pound weakling and Captain America, if you kind of arrested in the middle, where
Yeah.
he's gotten stronger, he's gotten faster, he's starting to prove himself physically, he's maturing, and you just kind of arrested there, knowing that at the end of it, he's gonna be 6'2", 240, and he's gonna be a perfect specimen, that
Mhm.
kind of thing.
Yeah, and the other thing that I feel as though you guys are basically starting to bring out is something that we necessarily do not see from this particular character, and that's his family.
Mm.
You decided to focus on a portion of his life that a lot of people do not see. Can we
Yeah,
emphasize on that?
that was an intentional choice because that is, historically accurate. The Keita family does go back many
Yeah,
generations. And again, there was this allure and this thread as we kind of dug deep into the history that they had been around for a long time, just making moves, literally moving the continent that they in that territory that they had forward through their leadership and their guidance and wisdom, and as well as their brutality. So it's kind of a mix of everything. And when you hear about the stories of his brother and how his brother at one point took over to become leader,
yeah,
and even the uncle who a lot of times is either confused for their father or their great uncle. They a lot of times that piece of history is a little fuzzy, but his whole thing was sailing voyages, and like the fact that they had went to America before everybody else did. So there's all these pieces that make his family just as interesting as him, if not more, on to some certain capacities, because again, when you read about Suleiman, he's more of a statesman and a scholar and less of the sword wielding swashbuckling brute that enjoys the taste of blood on the battlefield. Like
yeah.
there's just a different kind of dynamic. And I was like, well, that makes a perfect cast of characters right there. Because I mean, what's better than family and the
Mhm.
craziness that makes us family? So it just felt right, I think.
So,
Yeah.
would you feel as though it's safe that you portrayed Musa outside of him being a legendary ruler, but as a human being facing real challenges?
I think so. The Musa that we're portraying in book one is young. He considers himself established. And I think the whole point of book one is he's going to learn that he's not as established as he thinks he is. Like he comes from money. He gets, he has a name for himself, but he has a lot of growing to do. And we get to see that happen in real time in the first book.
Mhm.
And so we're going to see a young, dumb, battle hungry, out to prove himself version of Musa. Like he's not an idiot, but he's dumb. Like there's a difference between being intelligent and dumb, or intelligent and smart. He's not smart yet. He's not old enough, experienced enough to be smart. He's got it up here, but he doesn't have it in here yet. And so this is the story of him starting to get it in here and get ready for his rise to power.
Mm. Now, who are some of the like the supporting characters, the allies or the adversaries that are playing like the major roles in this book?
Yeah, you've got so there's obviously Musa, that was the book is about, as the main character, but you got Suleiman, his brother, Suleiman Keita, who again is the statesman, the scholar, and who sees the leadership of Mali, and through a different lens. And then there's their uncle, the great King Abubakari, who literally is again that little swole up, fat, you just relaxed, fed king. You know what I'm saying? Because again, he's accomplished everything he needs to accomplish. He's got a lot of women around him. He just loves life, and he's just chilling. And I think all of us to some extent aspire to be something like that at some point. And then you've got the citizens in Mali itself as a huge character as a backdrop. I mean, when
Yeah.
characters move through these areas, it does feel real. It feels like they're a part of it. We've got Ibrahim, who is a merchant, and then we also have what is it called? A day. Why am I forgetting who
Uh, uh,
Ibrahim talks to?
oh yeah, no, we'll let folks get to that part. I think what we really need to talk about is Jafari, because we get asked about that pretty often. Like Musa's
That's
cast of
who.
characters is also like his boys. So
Yeah.
Musa's got a gang with him. He's got them boys with him, and they up the pole when necessary for their time period. But he doesn't just have a bunch of like yes men and all that. His entourage are people who've bled with him, sweat with him, and we get to see them and actually see some pushback as well. So we don't want a story about a perfect guy who has he stumbles and he picks it up and runs. This is a story about a guy who is in a living, breathing ecosystem of characters, and everyone sees him a certain kind of way, including our antagonists. And so Musa gets surrounded by people who have a vested interest in their own life. So we talk about characters being like the hero of their own story. We
Mhm.
wanted to go out of our way to make sure every character in this book felt like the hero of their own story, to the point that even our villain doesn't feel quite like a villain.
Uh, Now I'll go back to you, Ade. What do you feel like, because you're a student of this? What do you feel like was the most challenging part of bringing this historical world to life?
Honestly, just as a dude who grew up heavily into like there's a reason I delineate between fantasy and high fantasy. Like for me, it was having to pump my brakes on being too fantastical. Like I didn't want to create an end product where people would go, "Oh, he said it's in Africa." And that's it. Like, and again, this is no shade to any of the amazing people that worked on, Black Panther. Black Panther didn't feel like Africa to me. Black Panther was just like, it's like, oh, cool, this is, these are black people, a majority black cast. This is excellent production, and this is a place we call Wakanda.
Mhm.
I saw there were some like some callbacks, some cultural things that were kind of thrown there, some kind of generic, diasporic things there, but it didn't feel as though we were there. And it could be just because it's a fictional country in Central Africa the size of Rhode Island
Yeah.
that it doesn't feel real and lived in. But I wanted folks to pick up this book and be able to walk away from it and be like, oh, Mopti is a real town. It's a
Mhm.
real fishing village. It's like, oh, they are on the Niger River. Okay. And for me, the hard part was making sure I didn't get too far away from that because TJ's talking about like we didn't want him in a big, mech and everything else. It was really easy to take it there. It's really easy to take it there to be like, oh, well, look, we got a whole gang. We got ninjas. Oh, we got Shinobi's like Anbu Black Ops from Naruto. Like we can do all that good stuff, but it was really just trying to keep it grounded enough. That was a hard part for me because I like to swing for the fences when I get a chance.
Heard.
We wanted to keep it. We wanted to respect the history too. I
Hmm.
think the 14th century was just such a rich time, and this is Musa lived, pre-colonialism. So I mean, again,
Yeah.
it hadn't happened in Africa at the time yet. So there was, again, a bustling world. And I think it really reminds me of like the movie Apocalypto and, how
Mm.
Mel Gibson, when he was directing that movie, was trying to give people an idea of what the pinnacle of that society looked like, the brutality, the beauty, the everything, right before the colonialism and the European people started trying to come in and take, you know what I'm saying? So we wanted to respect it. We wanted to respect the architecture, the people, the costumes, and that's what I didn't think it was his I mean, yeah, I do think we wanted to do some fantastical stuff, but I think it actually made it a lot easier because we're just kind of like, hey, all the references exist. It's all there. Like all we have
Yeah.
to do is pull from what is right in front of us. And then, Stanley helped and all these folks, our talented art team, they just were a joy to work with, and they had some really great interpretations of these characters and the costumes and how the action looked. It just was really, really, really fun.
Now, outside of that, well, if I wanted to talk about like one particular aspect of something that you wanted to bring to life, the weaponry. Like what weaponry would in 14th century Africa brought cultural significance, and what did you study from in order to bring those to life?
Oh
You
yeah.
know, I was just quickly just add that the artists who did a lot of the designs first had to do the research on what weapons actually existed, and we just wanted to make sure we weren't throwing a katana in there
Mm.
or some shit
Right.
that didn't exist. You know what I'm saying? Like, as much as we kind of like that stuff,
Hmm.
it was like, wait, what types of weapons were used by this particular empire? I mean, again, the Mali Empire was a Muslim empire. It wasn't Christian. It wasn't anything else. So specific weapons were traded from other Muslims that were coming, in and out of that trading port. So the weapon would be very reflective of that. And I think the two, well, I don't want to ruin what Musa's ability is because that would tell you what a big weapon is in the story. But again,
Yep.
Nata's weapon, I think a day could tell us quite a bit of cool stuff about that.
Oh yeah, so we decided to go with a kind of an arquebus, mainly because she's such an anachronistic character.
Hmm.
She's a character who historically would not have existed very frequently, pre-colonially, like a character of mixed race, and one who and honestly, if you look at her outfit, like she kind of looks like she's a woman out of time, and that was on purpose. And then we throw in her mechanical arm, and we throw in, all these nods to Europe, and she's like this embodiment of again anachronism. Like she's from outside, she's an outsider, so it's a physical embodiment there. And there are going to be folks who read it and go, that gun didn't exist, and it was like, yeah, but neither did a couple other things in the book. But it was important that she stand out in that way, that you look at her and go, she doesn't belong, because the whole core of her character is she doesn't belong. And so we've talked in other conversations about her being the flip side of Musa, him being male, her being female, him being a noble, her being, from the gutter and going through what she's gone through, him being a swordsman and a soldier, her being the bandit queen and a marksman. It really made a lot of sense to kind of peel away as much as we could. And then also, it's worth noting, and TJ hit the nail on the head when he was talking about, the trading of weapons and all of that. This is book one of five in
Right.
what could be a massive universe. And so there are Easter eggs throughout this book. There are things that are in this book that are going to have, a tail on them later on. So when we talk about even Musa's sword, you're going to see in some versions he's using the khopesh, the Egyptian sword.
Hmm.
It's like, well, we know Musa went to Egypt. We know that, you could like there are things in the story that are going to be hearkening to reality as well as overall to the story we want to tell. And I think it's really important to emphasize on our end that this is as faithful a retelling as we can tell as people who are not there, who took artistic license. But we are also going to be respectful of the source material, of which is reality itself. But we're gonna have a lot of fun with it. And so we look at his weapons, look at the armor that's worn, and the fact that it's considered optional in some fights. It's because if you look at African history and warfare, no, there's not a lot of plate mail.
Yeah.
Not a lot of pauldrons and cuirasses on people fighting. Not a lot of tabards and all that good stuff. Like we had a lot to play with, and you'll see that, and it'll be a lot of fun.
Mm. Now, is there a particular page or scene in the comic that you're especially proud of?
Mm,
I love all the scenes with the king,
mm,
and at the beginning of the book, at the middle of the book. I just like his entire vibe throughout the story. I think while he's kind of omnipotent and all powerful in certain ways, he's also kind of nonchalant and just kind of sees what's going to happen, which is kind of interesting. And he is a spectator to Molly as the mechanics are just of the machine are starting to turn.
Mhm.
And some of the pages that came from that artwork, I mean, came from our artists, from the
hmm
script, were just absolutely beautiful and
Yeah.
fun and just like, man, like that is one gorgeous ass page. And like how they did the temple, like his whole like throne room, like it just what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
hmm
So dope.
Damn.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, are there any myths or legends around Musa that you wanted to incorporate or reinterpret it for this particular project?
I think the core of the sword and sorcery element is
Yeah.
there. So we're not going to give too much away because it is something we really want people to find for themselves. But his relationship to gold is something we dug deep into and that we kind of morphed and twisted into our take on the subtle, passive as well as active magics in the story. I think that was the key thing. We decided it was going to be uh, sword and sorcery almost ahistorical in some ways.
Yeah.
That was the crux of it. Like that because that's what he's known for, being the most wealthy man in history. Well, what if that connection to gold meant more than him just being papered up? And so we played with that idea.
Right. It's almost like Samson with his hair.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So the more gold, the stronger he is.
Well, I'm not gonna give too much away. Let's
Okay.
just let's just say that his relationship to gold goes beyond its spending power. And if he does treat it as currency, it is physical, social, as well as spiritual currency.
Mm. Now, outside of just Musa's empire, why do stories about African empires matter in today's cultural landscape?
Um, Listen, what's crazy to me, and Day and I talk about this, and I've talked about this with so many other folks and friends of mine that,
Mm.
the American school system, has a cap on how much Black history they're interested in teaching you.
True.
Um, there's a cap on how much factual history they want to teach you. And after high school, most of the history that we've learned just stops with civil rights. It begins with slavery, stops with civil rights.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what the narrative has been pushed, and I've got friends that have worked at Scholastic, and the stories that I've heard about education in different parts of the world is kind of atrocious. It's absolutely insane what schools have gotten away with over the years. And I know personally, I didn't really fully start to grasp the depth of my own history as well as Black history for the diaspora itself until I started taking African American studies in college. And that was my introduction to a deeper reality of all the stuff that was going on, which again opened up my mind to the world that is in my backyard, that's in my genetics, that's in all of our genetics. I mean, again, a story like Moose is also is incredibly important because most of the folks that came here ancestrally were from West Africa, the
Hmm.
Ghana,
Mm.
Nigeria area. Most of our people hail from that area. So this is a story literally that, harkens back all the way back to our ancestors, which is, again, I think another reason why it should resonate with everybody in a spiritual level when they start reading this, because again, it is our people that we're talking about. It isn't South Africans, it's not North Africans, it's not East Africans. It's literally West Africans in the United States, and that's most of us. So, um, and like, to be honest, so many of our heroes are literally like have been shrouded in mystery over the years. They never really talked about them. I mean, the history is there if you look for it, but it's only if you're looking. And I don't think I've ever seen a teacher get excited about a story like Mansa Musa. But
Yeah.
we hope with a graphic novel of this caliber, of this stature, of this grandeur could literally open up school systems and educational places that are in the space of wanting to teach young children what could be. I think a comic is a perfect vehicle to bridge that gap and give them the knowledge that has kind of been hidden. So it's an important book for the diaspora as a whole, for the country as a whole. I would say. I mean, shoot. I mean, yeah. That I think that's it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mm. Now, were there any like surprising creative discoveries, or better yet, something that you wanted to implement in this book that you was like, oh, damn, we already got our 120 pages. I wanted to add that, but maybe I'll just do that later on in some later pages. Something that basically was either a creative agreement or better yet, a discovery that you possibly wanted to put in, or better yet, you may have already have during the
Well,
development of the book.
well, we sat down, like I said, when we started plotting the 500 pages before we ever started on page one of the first script. So we knew where we were going to take Musa. But I will say that some of the writing and some of the evolution of the characters that you see in the story, that happened in real time. So we sat down, we looked at book one, two, three, four, five. We had a rough idea of what we were going to do. We did beats for the first one. And then we started writing, and the story started to come together. And we knew who Musa was, we knew who Aminata was, but then we were really surprised at who Suleiman became and who some of the other characters were. We're like, oh, well, okay, well, we got 100 pages. And so we started to really look at pacing and really getting a feel for how we can give those characters room to breathe without taking too much real estate from Musa. And so I'm really happy with where we landed because I know for book two, there's nothing going into book two that was a holdover from book one because we ran out of time or mismanaged, page count. book two is going to be based on a very successful script for the first 100 pages. And so, like I said, there's connective tissue, there's the Easter eggs that we put in there, and so there are items that made it into book one that now get to breathe more in book two. And so, book two, three, four, five. All those may feel more or less like a Musa story, depending on
Yeah.
how much Mali itself evolves. He'll always be the central character, but I think TJ and I did a really good job of giving other people to root for and care about.
Yeah, because everybody, I guess, understands that the Mali Empire, being a center of culture, trade, learning, uh, bringing that to life, also in the aspect of pretty much hoping for readers to learn more about West
Mhm.
Africa, the Bantu people, uh, trade points throughout Africa. Like, what more did you want to basically push? Maybe not within this particular book, but maybe in the later books about Africa that people have not seen, because we talked about stuff that Black history just does not teach us. So,
Yeah.
at what point did you feel like, okay, I got more lessons to cook up here that you're going to see throughout the next five issues?
Listen, like, what's crazy to me is that, it was when people talk about a world superpower, it was the world superpower for thousands of years, the entire continent, different sections of it.
Yeah.
And that in of itself breeds so many different possibilities. And, the fact that Musa interacted with so many different types of areas as he was expanding his territory, but also as he was venturing out and, building mosques in different places throughout the continent as he was making his pilgrimage to Mecca. And, I think the fact that he was doing that and then also interacted with folks in Egypt. And to me, Egypt of that time is still not, it looks more accurate to what it probably really was. And, everybody's, a lot of people have seen that diagram of the people who actually lived there. And, they broke it down, the Nubians, the Assyrians, they had all these different people who were in and out of Egypt, like because it again was a center that brought
Hmm.
everybody together for various different purposes. So I think this gives us an opportunity to, again, explore the different types of individuals that were coming to our continent, for all of those reasons. I mean, again, you go back to even stories of the Bible of Jesus going to, um, disappearing for all these years, and but again, it's said that he went to Africa, went to Egypt, went to different parts to learn stuff from different shamans, and even, when we talk about Pythagoras and Plato and how they literally learned from African scholars and mystics and then brought that to other places and then said, oh, hey, these guys are the father of philosophy. They're literally riffing off of the stuff that we taught them. And, it's
Yeah.
again a watered down version. So I think there's such a powerful richness that I just get excited thinking about it. I get excited to talk about it because, again, while we were, warriors, we were so many other things, scholars, doctors, healers, historians. I mean, the Library of Alexandria, I'm pretty sure still existed at that time. There's all kinds of stuff that still existed and that comes after that. So it's just a very interesting point in history. It's a very, very intriguing point that I think everybody's going to get caught off guard. Like, wait a minute, this is a story I'm feeling invested in, and I have to see it through to the
Mhm.
rest of the five books.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, when we're talking about Musa being the wealthiest person on earth at a time, wealth doesn't necessarily have to equate to currency.
Mhm.
It was obviously a lot of this story is going to be built on wealth of knowledge, especially due to the fact that where you brought up the fact of a lot of people basically leaving to other territories. His pilgrimage to Mecca being a pivotal point in his life, the interactions that are going to occur with other cultures to him, is that going to be displayed as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So book one is our introduction to Musa.
Mhm.
Book two and the following books will be an introduction to a wider Alkebulon. And so we had and we talk about like what you can and can't have in like the 100 pages. We knew the 100 pages had to show who he was, who these important people were to him. But the idea was always going to be that he was going to grow. And the way that he grows is by stepping out of those comfort zones. Like we see,
Hmm.
that first crack in his egg, so to speak, in that first book, he's going to have to go. And especially if he's the king of an ever expanding territory where we're talking about commerce and conflict and all that good stuff. Moose is going to meet these people, and Moose is going to meet people who are just as influential as he is. People who, honestly, at this point, like especially early on, he'll meet people who have more resources than him,
Yeah.
people who have more people than him, and he's going to be learning on that journey what it means to be the king he needs to be. He's already seen King Abubakari, and for him, the king served his time. He did his bid or whatever. It's time for young dude to step in. So he has that to build off of when he's interacting with his brother Suleiman. Suleiman's going to be there, especially early on, as kind of checks and balances there, because you still have it's not successful just because you can drop a lot of people in the dirt on a battlefield. That's Suleiman's whole thing. Suleiman's whole thing is we still got the ones and zeros are running this place. You want to take 600 people out there and do whatever. You got to feed them. You got to outfit them. They're
Yeah.
going to need horses. They're going to need all of that. And so he's going to be there for that. And then they're going to run into people with similar and very dissimilar worldviews. And one thing that can't be overstated is that Musa is expanding through conflict. And so not everyone's gonna sit there and just become a part of Mali. And
Hmm.
so we're gonna be able to deep dive into those groups and those factions, those tribes, those towns, those villages, those kingdoms that don't necessarily want to be under the Keita flag.
Now, when we're talking about the comic itself, I see it, of course, as it's an exploration of this brilliant story of this historical figure. But there's also this, of course, educational portion of this. Have y'all even brought up the fact that y'all might have a chance at exploring taking this to schools?
Oh yeah,
Mm,
I had the pleasure of being at a convention called EmojiCon about 3 weeks ago, and EmojiCon, it was the first time they ever came up with a convention, but the larger organization is the Emoja Community Conference. Well, Emoja means community,
Mhm.
but again, the larger organization is the Emoja Conference, and they've been in business doing conventions within the space of education, tech, STEM, all these things for the last 21 years, and they've been doing some incredible work with all these different HBCUs across the country, as well as other, Black student unions and just, other colleges as well. So all these people were flying from different parts of the country to EmojiCon, and there was all these brilliant young children who were just thirsty to learn about comics, art, how to get into the business of storytelling, gaming, all these things. And I had a test copy of Musa-Lion of Mali there that everyone got a chance to take a look at, and you could see this spark in their brains. So and I had aligned with a bunch of educators, took a bunch of cards, and I do think it's just a matter of time before we're able to teach pieces of this story to a class via some Zoom calls or some in-person, interactions. But it's on the way, because this is just another opportunity for us to have a deeper, richer, and better understanding of who we are.
Mm. Now, creative team. If you can, feel free to shout out the key collaborators. Obviously, you've co-written this, artwork, editors, coloring. Who we got?
mm. Oh yeah. So we're looking at Stanley Obende, Sean Damian Hill, Wellington Namo, who not only did chapter two, he also did the cover that people get really hype about, the standard cover, and he did a lot of our character concept art for our main characters. We worked with Ray Anthony Height for a bit on the book. We had Karen Grant do our wraparound cover, right, TJ? So that'll be the alternate cover. We worked with Dr. Shamika Mitchell as our editor. TJ already gave a shout out to the interns who did their excellent environmental design work. Am I forgetting anybody, TJ? I feel like it was a huge team, but I feel like I
We
might be
had
missing
a
somebody.
big team. We also had Mario Teresi
Oh
out of
yeah,
Italy.
Mario Teresi.
He's the dark skinned Italian, so he got a pass this time around. And but Wellington really was the star of the show in
Yeah.
terms of the weight that he pulled, because besides doing chapter two, he also did, a cover for us. He did some interior art, and I'm sorry, he did some interior cover art, interior pages, and he did a bunch of coloring for
Hmm.
Sean's pages as well as Mario's pages and some of Anthony Height's pages. So he was our go-to guy that helped seal the deal on this book, and he had a big foothold in the success of it. So we're really appreciative and grateful to him because he's a genius. But each artist brought a very rich, different take, and I think, the initial conversation that Day had and I about this was like, oh, this feels like it could be an anthology. And then that comes with interesting challenges, though, because if you have it as an anthology, usually those are different stories. But we kind of gave it the anthology feel, but it's a consecutive story per chapter. And what we were very grateful was is that the artists worked in sync and we didn't miss a beat. So from chapter 1, 2, 3 to 4, it all feels like it just flows the right way, even though the artwork changes and the vibe changes, per story. So I do think that it was just an interesting challenge, but a fun one at that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Now, what impact do you hope that this story has on not only young readers, but just readers as a whole on the representation in comics?
Hmm.
You know, oh, Dave, you were gonna say something? Go ahead.
Oh no, no. I was gonna say honestly, and I'll keep it brief. I want folks to realize that there are real heroes in the world, and that the history of the world is littered with heroes. And just because you happen to be a citizen of a Western power, where all of your heroes were on an FBI watch list and all that good stuff, that doesn't mean they're not celebrated. And those same folks were inspired by and are the direct descendants of people like Mansa Musa.
Right.
And I've been saying in every conversation, I come from a community that we didn't need Peter Parker, Luke Skywalker, Bruce Wayne, Clark Kent, none of those guys. I live in Baltimore. It's Tubman City. Harriet Tubman is the superhero.
Hmm.
Like when people talk about Superman, Action Comics, number one, flipping that car, I don't see that as being the first superhero. I see her shooting her husband because he was going to dime her out. That's a superhero to me. And I want people to take a look at that and feel that sense of pride, but also feel that spark and that impetus to go out and learn more. The book we wrote is not 100% factual. I don't want to depict it as being a comic documentary of the life
Hmm.
of this great man. It is our interpretation of a young Mansa Musa with sword and sorcery elements. We hope you're entertained. We hope that that you go, oh man, it's the dopest thing I've read all year. Oh my God, I'm so glad I gave to that Kickstarter. Musa-Lion and Molly.com. We're really hoping for that. But we're also hoping that you put the book down and then you just go to your library or you go to your local cultural center and then you start to really deep dive, or you go to your professor on campus, or you go to your uncle who was the crazy one in the family that nobody wanted to talk to because he always know what the man is doing, and you start to expand your horizons. We are oversampled, especially in the Black community, when it comes to just like consuming media.
Hmm.
And a lot of the media we consume is the stuff that is just dreamt up by randos, and it's fed to us. And we have had a steady diet for hundreds of years, is being told what's in our best interest and who's in our best interest. No, pick it up. Go find your own things. We're hoping people like it enough to want to grow as human beings.
Mm. Now, I'll ask this last question to both of you because you've obviously had time to put this together because you're going to put this into 5 issues. If you had a chance to meet Mansa Musa in real life, what would you want to ask him?
Yo, I want to ask him what the whole story was. Like, what's all the stuff that missed the history books that the griot forgot to scribble on that tablet. You know what I'm saying? What's the joint that stuff that's lost to history? Because I do think the further you go back, the wonders that history brings, and the fact that so many people were able to do some such incredible things that we still can't replicate today. Thousands of years later, that it is. You know, like, yeah, man, like how did you do it? How was the journey? And for real, like what can we learn now from you? I think that'd be my question. What could we take away and bring to this century?
Mm.
I'd ask him if he regrets anything. Like if he has this, like I'm not asking. I mean, it'd be great to get all the details. Obviously, I would just ask him like, I don't want to know everything. Is there anything you would take back?
Right.
Like you've done all this, you've crashed economies, you've done all this, you've engaged in some. There's a lot of talk of a slave trade, sir. Like there's a lot of stuff that happened in your life. Is there anything that if you could, give it all up and go back and change one thing, what would it be? Because I mean, when I look at the story we're trying to tell, it's a story about trying to create a Musa or tell a story of a Musa who's dodging regrets, if that makes any sense. Like he's trying to make the right decision. He's trying to be the man that people around him need to be, the king his country needs him to be. So for me, the real interest is for the actual Musa, like, well, where did you drop the ball? And if you could pick it up again, at what point in your life was that going to be? Were you
Yeah,
YN Musa when it happened? Were you old Musa and raising your son who was going to be the failed king of that history talks about? Where would you be with that?
yeah, because I can imagine somebody of that type of stature at that period of time. There was some sacrifices that more than likely
Hmm.
had to be made.
Yeah,
Man, uh, so I appreciate the both of you, man, for
I
this.
appreciate you.
Yeah,
Absolutely. TJ,
Mike.
Ade, I definitely look forward to the book. When are we dropping, by the way?
Yo, it's this Friday, y'all. So
Hmm.
you guys are probably going to see it after the joint drops, but on 11/28, Black Friday, we launch Musa-Lion of Mali.com. This 120-page graphic novel. You can jump to Musa-Lion of Mali.com. It'll take you right to the Kickstarter page, redirect you right to it. The campaign's 30 days, so it goes all the way to through Christmas to the 28th of December. And we guarantee that this book will be in your hands within 30 to 60 days of us closing that campaign because the work's done. We put in the time, we put our money where our mouth is, and we are ready to literally get you this amazing story because we believe in it. We know you're going to love it. This is the fifth IP that comes out of the Ray Media camp. It's one of my most proudest achievements to be able to work on this book. And you guys already know what my track record is. So like now it's just like this is just another one. You dig?
Yeah.
Like this is another piece of that beautiful tasty pie that we got on the table for y'all.
Bird, Ade,
Absolutely.
how's it going to feel getting this into everybody's hands?
It's going to be amazing. So TJ reached out to me shortly after my first child was born.
Mhm.
So that was in 2020, spring 2020, going into the summer. And so we put in that work and we did what we had to do. There were windows of time where we thought we were going to bring it to everyone, but it just didn't quite feel right. We knew
Yeah,
we had another way to refine it to make it the best it could be. It'll be great to put it out there. I have nothing but love for the medium, nothing but love for TJ and the work that he does with Ray Media, and nothing but love for telling a good story. And so I really do want to hear what people think because we've been in a bubble where we've got a chance to fall in love with this IP over and over and over and over and over again. I want
mhm.
to hear what people think, even if they come back and go, yeah, but factually, yeah, like I'm fine with that. I'm the TJ will tell you I'll talk about this till I'm blue in the face. I really just I want to hear what people think, and they're not going to do that unless they go to musalionofmali.com and go through all the steps so they can contribute to the campaign.
Mm. Now, outside of the Kickstarter campaign, there is a way to actually obtain this on the direct market.
No, not yet, not yet. This will be where we are launching the book officially. So this is essentially pre-orders. So the book is done, and we want to see how large our first print run needs to be. So we want people to vote with their dollars. After that, you'll be able to pick it up on all the usual websites, shelves, and tables at conventions.
Excellent. Excellent. Gentlemen, I appreciate you doing this with me. TJ, it's always a pleasure. Ade, it was absolutely fantastic to meet you, man.
Likewise, brother. Likewise.
Yeah, we
Absolutely.
can get AI or Canva to put what is it called, the little our names on the Spidey in the background.
Oh, bro, I was rushing today.
Yeah, it's all good. That's why I usually see it. Used to seeing my name up there.
Yeah, right?
Oh,
Well, look,
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
All
you got a great collection, got a great podcast. I always
hmm.
love coming on. I was telling today that yeah, person go to person we got to chat with,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, man. Hopefully, life's been treating you good, man, and we're super excited to get this book in your hands, everyone's hands. So you guys check it out when you see this podcast. Get the book. I mean, you can get chapter one for $5 if you want. We've got a super low tier. You can get the entire PDF for 15. You can get the full book signed by me in a day for only 30. Comes with a dope variant cover. There's t-shirts on the Kickstarter. Access to the entire Ray Media library. Like you have a bunch of cool stuff on that campaign, and we're just super excited to share it with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a thing of beauty. It's a book that even if I didn't write it, I would want to own. It looks great. It reads great. My little boy, he's flipping through it all the time. My test copy's probably not going to look like much come New Year because he's always just looking at it and asking about it. And if a 5-year-old is doing that, I have every hope that the rest of us can get that hype about it, get that excited about it, and want to deep dive too.
Excellent.
So,
Excellent. So I appreciate the both of you. Of course, for everybody here at the Facts Project, this project, of course, releases on Friday. Musa-Lion of Mali, live on Kickstarter. Look out for both Ade and TJ, because once this basically gets out there, y'all gonna hit the convention circuit.
Oh yeah, that's a given. That's
All
a
these
given.
Zooms ain't gonna work no more. You gotta be like live and in front of people.
Hmm.
yeah.
The shaking.
My dance card's full next year.
Just
You're
saying,
already.
shaking hands and kissing babies. That's what this whole thing is about.
Better than
Yeah.
kissing hands and shaking babies.
Way better than that. All right. So for myself, James Grandmaster Facts Boys, Ade Heru, TJ Sterling, Lion of Mali, get that right now. It's going to be live on Kickstarter very soon. And I appreciate the both of you for being here. Thank you guys. We are out.